Hello, Data Standard community. I'm your host, Shayna Weldon, and we are bringing you a great guest. On our podcast, we have Prashant Natarajan, the Vice President of Strategy and Products at H2O AI. Prashant is passionate about conceptualizing and leading successful, timely, and outcomes-driven products and digital transformation initiatives. He is a best-selling author of business books on digital transformation, data analytics, and AI ML. Wow, this is so impressive. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shayna. It's delightful to be here with you. Couldn't think of a better way to end the day than being on the Data Standard show with you and sharing my thoughts with your audience.
That is so nice of you to say. I'm so grateful that you took the time to be here. To start off, can you please just introduce yourself?
I am a Vice President of Strategy and Products at H2O.ai, which is the world's leading open source artificial intelligence and machine learning company. And my responsibilities building verticalized solutions, conceptualizing and delivering new products and cloud services. Prior to joining H2O, I was the Global Director of Data Science at the Unum Group, a principal in analytics and AI at Deloitte Consulting in Australia. And before that, the head of products for the health sciences business unit at Oracle based out of Edwards Shores, California.
Wow. I know you mentioned it briefly. Can you please go in a little more depth into what exactly you do as the VP of Strategy and Products?
I think the key thing, especially in the time that we live in, is to take advantage of datafication. In other words, the data that exists around us, whether it is little or big or everything else in between. And how do you take advantage of that data? Well, you put that data to work for us through analytics and advanced analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. And the rise in the amount of data that is being captured, both within the enterprise and outside the enterprise, is being paralleled by tremendous advancements in a few things. One is the rise of cloud computing. The second is the cheaper access to compute and storage. And the third is the sheer advancements that have happened in algorithms and in AI and machine learning. So the combination of more easily available data, cheaper and better access to compute and storage, and the fact that the technology has moved so fast just in the last, say, 5 years even, means that we are able to take advantage of structured data and unstructured data to be able to generate meaningful business value and human outcomes, and which I think in the end is the most important thing. So my work at H2O AI accomplishes those, which is working with large customer base to make sure that they are able to get those value and outcomes of the data by using our products.
Okay. What's the biggest challenge that you face regarding data models and data pipelines?
I think the biggest challenge even today is actually two things. It's not so much the data itself or the fact that the data is being captured, but how that data is being governed, for example, is still a huge challenge, especially when it comes to structured data. Unstructured data, in my opinion, despite what a lot of people think, is actually easier to harness in the enterprise today than structured data, because structured data is captured in various forms by systems of transaction, systems of record, and typically it spans many decades. And over those decades, with the differences in technology, people, and processes, that data can be governed more efficiently. So I think one of the things I've seen repeatedly in roles prior to joining H2O is trying to get access to that data, trying to understand that data, and making that data valuable in many ways that it is by putting it to work. The second challenge that still exists is the fact that we are still trying to focus on a one-size-fits data quality, where we define data quality in ways that I don't think are scalable or frankly valid, which is why in my last book, I spoke about the concept of data fidelity, which is the quality and the appropriateness of data in the context of its use and in the context of its user. And what does that mean? What it means is there is no one size fits all definition to data quality. The quality of the data can change tremendously based on the use case and how that data is being put to work. So trying to clean, quote unquote, clean all the data to perfection before it can be used is actually, in my opinion, difficult because we spend more time cleaning the data than using the data. So selecting the data that is needed for a set of use cases and then doing that in a progressive way and understanding that both the structural meaning and the semantic meaning of data can change over time means that we have to start looking at data fidelity rather than data quality as a better rubric of how that data is put to work. So the challenges primarily are again around governance and quality, and addressing those two, I think, will help the modern enterprise become a data first and a digital first enterprise more easily, given the other ingredients are already in place.
Let's move towards your recent book that you wrote. It's called Demystifying AI for the Enterprise. It'll be out shortly. What inspired you to write this book?
A couple of things, primarily, Shana. The first was the fact that when my co-authors and I started writing this book a couple of years ago, there was still a lot of mystery and myth in equal measures around AI. If we go back to about 4 years ago, something that I wrote about in my last book and in this one, there were usually the conversations around AI were pretty binary. One was, oh my God, AI is going to take all our jobs away and none of us will have work to do.
Yes.
And that was one extreme. And then there was another extreme, which was very close to it, which was, oh, we are all going to be dealing with Schwarzenegger-like Terminator machines that are going to perform medical tests on us that we don't want. To the other extreme, which was AI is so wonderful that it's going to toast our bread for us, it's going to eat it for us, and we'll get the energy without the calories. And the reality for the enterprise is neither of those extremes are true. So AI is neither a malevolent bad force, nor is it this amazing thing that's going to do all of these wonderful things automatically. In the end, the applications of AI are still a human endeavor, frankly. And in fact, I posit in the book that the A in AI doesn't merely stand for artificial intelligence, but it actually stands for augmented intelligence, amplified intelligence, and automation in certain forms. So I think the augmentation and amplification aspect of the A in AI is more real for the modern enterprise than the artificial aspect of it. And in order for us to harness and use technology, we need to make sure that everybody understands the technology. So if we say that, or if we think that AI is going to be purely the reserve of people who have a PhD in data science or a PhD in machine learning, then what we are going to do is we are never going to be able to quickly get those business value and outcomes that we spoke about earlier. So what's the first step in the process? The first step in the process is a plain English understanding of what AI is, what AI is not, and most importantly, how can organizations leverage AI to create value, to ensure positive outcomes, and to achieve digital and business transformation. So that's the reason why I wrote this book.
I love those thought-provoking questions. I also like how you're changing up the definition of AI, or not the definition, but I guess, yeah, the acronym of the A and the I. I'm so excited to read this book. And how can our viewers get a copy of your book?
Oh, thank you. The book is currently available for pre-order on Routledge Press's website as well as Amazon.com. It's called Demystifying AI for the Enterprise. Or you can do the more challenging thing and type my name out with all the number of vowels it has into Amazon, and you'll get links to purchase the book. And I am, and my team of co-authors, we are very excited about this because the book is chock full of examples on how AI can be applied in customer relationship management, in supply chain management, in HR, and also has very topical examples from retail, from banking, from other verticals. And it's chock full of case studies, global case studies that basically talk about how organizations have been able to leverage AI to create great outcomes, not just for their customers, but also for their employees. So, and it's the key thing is you don't need a PhD in mathematics or linear algebra to read the book. It's written in plain English. And frankly, we strongly recommend that executives and business and operations leader absolutely read it.
Sounds so great and very valuable. What is your advice on making AI ML transformations for non-data first companies? And what does it mean to be a non-data first company?
So this is a very interesting topic, and it was something that we talk about in general, right? You talk about companies which are digital first, and these companies are typically not companies that talk extensively about digital transformation. So I guess the first definition of a data first company or a digital first company is a company that doesn't talk about digital transformation because they're already digital. They are digital by definition. So if you take some examples for would be companies like Airbnb or Uber or Google or AWS and H2O, where I work right now. Because these companies have been created in the last, I would say, maybe 10 to 20 years, roughly speaking, and they haven't had to deal with the cultural challenges of becoming a digital first organization. They have always been driven by data and analytics first cultures and technologies and business processes in ways that there is no legacy to think of. So the companies that are data first and digital first companies are ones where the culture, business processes, technology choices, and workflows are informed by analytics right from the get-go. And what does that mean? It means they have a very fine-tuned understanding of their customers, of the needs of their customers, including their changing needs, of the impact of black swan events such as COVID, and they're able to recover faster from those black swan events than companies that are not digital and data first. So that begs the question, what are companies that are non-digital and non-data first? To you, going back to your question. So these are companies that have been around for relatively a long time, number one, and which means that they've also been very successful. Because if you have not been successful as a company, you wouldn't be existing for a long time, right? Whether it's a small or a medium business or it's a large enterprise, one cannot argue with the successes that these companies have. They do what they do in their domain exceedingly well. More credit to them. But at the same time, they have the challenge of going through the process of digital transformation because their culture and their business processes and frankly, how they are set up doesn't lend itself automatically to a data and analytics first culture. They have to make an effort to get there. And it is going to pay off because, as I talk about in the book extensively, a company that doesn't go data or digital first is basically going to have some severe consequences moving forward. They are going to deal with competitive disadvantage. A company that puts its data to work via AI is going to be better placed to create new advantages and positive differentiation vis-a-vis the competition, both existing and upcoming. Customers and employees demand more. And we can see this in our own personal lives, both in how we interact with technology and we interact with products that are not technology products, right? There is a deep desire for hyper-personalization. So how do you get to hyper-personalization? You get to hyper-personalization by understanding the customer better than your competition. And then finally, among other things, I would say the company that is not data and digital first is not going to be in the best position to manage opportunity, to address risk, or maximize top and bottom line revenues, margins, and profitability. So I think there are very good reasons for why companies must succeed at digital transformation. And I believe that AI, of course, driven by the fuel of AI, which is data, provides the best opportunity for these companies to actually go and achieve that successfully and create a better experience for employees, customers, and stockholders. products.
So then what is the true value of data science and what are the purposes of structured versus unstructured data? I know we brought this up before and I think it's a great topic to touch upon.
It's a very interesting point. And this is something that in the last 4 or 5 years, I've been spending a lot of my time and effort. Having come from a background which was heavily data warehouses and data lakes and process re-engineering, one of the things I discovered was about 5 years ago, it was relatively difficult for us to get value out of successful data efforts that dealt with structured data. It wasn't impossible. It was difficult. It took elbow grease, it took investment, and it took the right mindset, but we could still get value out of it, right? What I find is if you take a look, and this is no secret, you know it, I know it, your listeners know it, is there is more data that is buried inside documents, that's buried inside images and videos. Emails, for example, are, I think, a rich source of tribal knowledge about both inside an organization and about our customers. But it has been historically very challenging to put that data to work. And a lot of the knowledge and insights are buried in these documents and images. And when I say documents, I'm being expansive. Documents can be contracts. They can be benefits documents, for example, in insurance or policies. They can be emails. They can be clinical notes that you capture about a patient in a hospital. They can be forms, digital forms, right? So the amount of data that is stuck in these sources is quite a bit. By various estimates, people say that about 60 to 80% of an enterprise's data is actually buried in unstructured data.
Wow.
So I think it's very important for us now to focus on that unstructured data and get value and insights out of it. Using the advancements that have happened in the last few years with natural language processing, computer vision, ICR, intelligent character recognition, and being able to get that out. Now, does it mean that there is going to be no use for structured data? Absolutely not. That is not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, as we start getting more meaning and value out of this unstructured data, structured data provides the context, it provides the framework. So the ideal environment and data ecosystem that companies should be thinking more about is getting more value out of their unstructured and semi-structured data and then supplementing it with their structured data. So I would almost paraphrase and say, leave no data behind. Put it to work for you.
I like that. Leave no data behind.
Exactly.
Yeah. I cannot believe 60 to 80% of the data is unstructured. This is a great amount, really.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at, for example, what is being said about an organization, whether it is internally and not just necessarily bad feedback, but even positive feedback, right? If you take a look at the number of emails that we exchange within an organization, if you take a look at surveys that we conduct with our customers and internally, if you think about social media, if you think about contracts, I would say there is so much data there that far eclipses what we are capturing in an ERP system or a business process system. So I think it's one of those things which it's high time that we bring technology to bear, bring AI ML to bear to put that data to work for us. Now, I'm a big believer in the fact that there's two options, or rather I'd paraphrase and say there are two kinds of people in the world. There are the kind of people who spend their life working on data, struggling to get value out of it. And there are people who make the data work, chill out and drink pina coladas. Like, well, scratch the last one about pina coladas. But our goal should be to create an ecosystem where our data works for us as opposed to us working on the data all the time.
Yeah, I like that. We previously spoke before, and you mentioned that, quote, every vertical has its own specific needs, but many needs are similar, and how it's important to look at the impact of framework that focuses on both the hard and soft aspects of these processes. There's so many things happening here. Can you please elaborate on what you were talking about?
Sure. I'll break it up into two things because I think they are absolutely concepts that are related to each other, yet they do deserve equal and separate treatment. So on the first topic, in every vertical, executives and leaders may be tempted to think that, oh, my vertical is absolutely unique and nobody else has the problems that I do and the opportunities I do? Well, there is more in common than we realize. Because let's take a simple definition that I think everybody will understand. A customer. So if you understand who a customer may be somebody who uses or purchases your product or services. And that could be, for example, an ironing board, right? Let's take something simple. Or it could be bread or milk, or it could be SIM card, right? Or a cell phone service or transportation service. So what is common to all of these things? Well, the needs of a customer from a service or a product may be different in terms of what they do and how they apply it in the context. But if you think about it, customers purchase a product or a service to be able to get satisfaction, to be able to accomplish certain goals, and to actually move on, right? Succeed and move on. So when we think about it, it almost is immaterial as to what product and service they are purchasing, other than to understand that there are common needs around how we acquire customers, how we keep customers happy, how do we ensure their happiness and satisfaction, how do we convert them into repeat customers and have them keep coming back, how do we proactively, based on the data they choose to share with us, look at what their emerging needs might be of them and their families, assuming there are no privacy concerns, and also importantly, how do we prevent customers from churning. So it doesn't matter if you're a customer that's buying a car, or a customer that's buying a brand of ice cream, or a customer who is purchasing a digital product. What we do with that customer, how we segment them, how we understand them, how we acquire them, how we prevent them from churning, there's a lot more commonality across all these verticals than not. So my point is that, yes, look at your own vertical, because there will be specific nuances and specific needs that are specific to each vertical, but there is a lot more that is shared across all verticals. So let's learn from each other, right? Because a rising tide lifts all ships in the harbor. So our goal is to be able to do that, especially as we look at digital transformation. The second part of it is the impact framework. So the impact framework is something that I developed in Demystifying AI for the enterprise. So I started looking at how organizations, and this has been an effort that has been ongoing for almost 4 years, both across my management consulting role, my role in a business, and my role as in a company that creates AI/ML products, right? I looked at, okay, what is it that really drives how organizations adopt and use a new technology? So when I said there are hard and soft criteria, what I meant was the hard part of it is obviously the technology choices you make and what technology you choose, how do you deploy it, and so on and so forth, right? What products are you purchasing in order to bring those data analytics and AI/ML products to life? But the success or failure of an organization that wants to be successful with digital transformation depends more on what I call the soft choices. And what are these soft choices? So the impact stands for the following things. The I in impact stands for imagination. And imagination covers invention and innovation, right? So how do you invent new products or services using data analytics? How do you innovate? Make your existing products or services better, right? And in order to do that, you need to be able to liberate the minds of not just leadership, but everybody in an organization and even your customers to imagine what is possible, to open up the ecosystem in order to let innovation, invention, and imagination thrive. So I spent quite a bit of talking about that. What does imagination mean and how do you get to that, right? The M is maturity. So not every organization is at the same level to take advantage of data and analytics as every other organization. In fact, dare I say it, even within a single organization, there will be business units and business lines and departments that are more mature than ones that are not. So understanding, measuring, and acknowledging the levels of maturity that exist within your own company, and then also vis-a-vis your competition, is going to be very important, because unless you understand your own maturity, it's going to be very difficult to make that leap into increased maturity. So at the absolute lowest level of maturity is what I call nascent, right? And it goes all the way to symbiotic. And symbiotic is where human intelligence and machine intelligence work to help each other. right? And I don't believe that there is AI without humans. So I never talk in my books or in my keynotes about artificial intelligence existing in its own accord, right? I talk about how can it serve the humans and what do humans need to do. The P going back in impact is actually about the humans. It's about the people. It's the kind of talent that you bring, not just data scientists, not just data analysts, not just BI developers, but also bringing leadership and upskilling and training and culture to be able to take advantage of the shared decision making that human and machine intelligence will bring together. The A in impact stands for augmentation, amplification, and automation. And there's a reason I put automation last, because a lot of efforts on AI or in its RPA for that matter, which is not AI, are focused on automating things. But the true value of AI, we will see truly in augmented intelligence and amplified intelligence. Now, how do we get there, right? The C in impact is culture. It's being able to recognize your culture, modify your culture, get rid of part of your culture, and create new cultures. That is how organizations that are going down the digital transformation route can basically get to a point where they are data and digital first organizations. And finally, the T stands for transformation itself. What it really means. How do you get there? What is the role of leadership? What is the role of process? How do you go around not just bringing the right talent, but upskilling your talent? And what successful transformation means and what successful transformation doesn't mean. So the impact framework really stands for the ability for us to use these very thought through, validated criteria and best practices across these 6 dimensions to get there. One of the things I talk about is that if we go back about 120 years, Shana, there was a different role called a CEO. It was the Chief Electricity Officer. And this was when electricity had just become extremely popular and companies were all trying to figure out how to take advantage of this newfangled thing called electricity. So they all had the CEO, the Chief Electricity Officer, whose job it was to make sure that their businesses were able to take advantage of electricity, going from an industrial revolution era of steam engines to electricity. It was an exceedingly successful role. And the reason it was successful was within 10 years, the role no longer existed. So all organizations transformed to start using electricity in every way, shape, and form. That companies no longer saw a need to have a chief electricity officer. So that's the same thing I believe we should do for data and analytics, where it becomes embedded into how organizations achieve digital transformation, that we don't talk about data first organizations anymore in 10 years from now, because every organization is a data first organization. And that's what true transformation is.
Wow. That new transformation sounds like a shift in my mindset and our mindsets. In 10 years, not to be talking about data because of the transformation. Wow. See, at first I thought we would be talking about it, but you gave the analogy about electricity and now I get it.
Absolutely, right? I think there are more important things for us to worry about than just how we harness data and put it to work. And my sincere wish is that thanks to my work and my books and conversations like this, Shana, that I don't have to write these books anymore in 10 years from now. So that's what I would consider success.
Yeah. I love this progressive thinking, really, this positivity as well. I know we talked about a few challenges today, but what's the greatest challenge in your industry, do you think?
I'd say I'll expand that question, right? Because when you say in our industry, the customers I serve exist across, for example, healthcare, life sciences, insurance, banking, manufacturing. These are some of the industries I've worked in over the years. And I would say the biggest challenge is recognizing the role of what I call the impact framework plays. Because we often think sometimes of technology as being the end in many ways, or being a magic widget or a magic wand, that if you bring technology X and you hire Y, bam, digital transformation will happen. And no, it does not. And that's the reason why I wrote this book. Because to me, if we don't understand, and I put it in the impact framework precisely for that reason, to break down each of these things things that we discussed previously, and to help enterprises and small and medium businesses understand how they can recognize each of these dimensions and how they can put those dimensions to work. So the greatest challenge is the fact that I think many organizations yet don't understand how multidisciplinary and cross-functional the role of what I call the impact framework can be. So I strongly urge them to look at these 6 dimensions and to be able to think big, think broad, and think deep all at the same time.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing so much. I know we will definitely stay connected even after today, but how can our listeners get connected with you?
I am on LinkedIn, Prashant Natarajan, and I'm not going to spell it out because you're going to kindly have my name on the podcast page.
Yes, we will.
I'm also nervous about spelling it out because with the number of vowels that are there, I might get it wrong. But I'm also on Twitter at NATARTR. But LinkedIn is usually the best way to get in touch with me. And then I would also recommend that more people listen to your podcast and replay this one. Hopefully they get value out of it. And they can also, once they pre-order the book, or purchase the book when it comes out. And there's more information there on how we can keep this conversation going. In the end, I believe that in the data analytics, AI, ML technology space, our goal is to help our customers. Our goal is to help our peers within the organizations, fellow employees. And as leaders, we must understand that technology is not the end, but a means to the end. And that end is achieving positive value, return on investment, achieving positive business outcomes, and also importantly, achieving highly happy and satisfied humans. So if technology can accomplish all of those, I would consider that we would be successful. And I would strongly urge that we all focus on creating the community and achieving that together.
I think you're 100% right. And what a great positive note to end on. For more information on the data standard, you can reach us at www.datastandard.io. This episode was also sponsored by Pandio. They are innovating the tech space, and you can learn more about their work at pandio.com. But once again, Prashant, really, thank you so much. Really, I learned so much, and I'm so excited for your new book. Listening to you, you have such great insight about the world and about data and where we're moving in the future. And I appreciate your time today, truly.
Thank you for this opportunity. I can't thank you enough for having me.
Thank you for being here.